Well, welcome once more. Perry here to talk to you about your career plan. All those amazing different careers. They're going to make you, well, a lot of money, but also that you're going to enjoy, that you're going to have a good time with, and that you're going to feel rewarded by. Now, this list, as we discussed in the intro, is really designed kind of a 1 through 11 sort of scenario based on how much money you can make. Now, some of these roles take a little longer to achieve than others, but all of them are in demand and all of them are going to make you that cash and also have a great future. So first on the list, application developer. More importantly, mobile application developer. That's right, it's all going mobile. The big desktop computer's gone. And at some point, it's just going to go back to application developer. But right now, mobile application developer definitely means its own thing with its own sort of development tools and technologies. And let me tell you, these people are crazy in demand. There are so many jobs. All you have to do is go to the job boards, Indeed or Dice or Monster, and type in mobile application developer, and you're going to find tons of opportunities. So basically, mobile application developers work on projects for all those great devices we've come to know, love, and be completely addicted to. I mean, like crack addict addicted to. These things, they say now the average American spends, and this is ridiculous, 4 hours a day on their mobile device. Okay, so I'm only awake for maybe like 10 hours a day, but 4 hours a day, that's crazy. But I'm looking around, and everywhere I look, I feel like people have forgotten how to talk to one another. They're on their mobile device all the time. They completely permeate and drive our life. And hey, that's all right, especially if you're looking for a career move. That's not going to change, and the demand for mobile application developers is not going away. So this profession has the highest level of growth in the IT marketplace as of now. So for every open application developer position, there's like 2.5. So for everyone that gets filled, there's another 2.5 positions just sitting out there not getting filled. And the reason why there's so many jobs is because there's just not enough skilled mobile application developers out there. Now, the big reason, right, this is a pretty new job. I mean, really, I think with the iPhone come out in like 2006, something like that. And then this whole app marketplace is really blown up. And people haven't really, in terms of their skill sets as developers, have really adapted to this, even though we have something like 1 million different apps out there. But there's just such a huge demand for these folks, and it is a great investment for your career if you're thinking, well, what should I do? What's the best investment? This is the one. And if you're already a developer or you're already in IT, tool it up, baby. It's time to go the mobile route. Mobile is where your future's at, and I would definitely take a look at starting to make that transition into mobile application development. All right, some stats. Crazy, crazy, awesome stats here. Annual growth rate, and this is way faster than average, 32% per year. Okay, that's a lot. For growth rate for a particular career field, 32% is just ginormous. So it's really, you can basically say, yes, I know that I'll have a job in several years from now. They're going to create almost 300,000 mobile application developers jobs by 2020. So over the next 5-6 years, they're going to add almost 300,000 of these. And I actually think this number is low. Based on some other data I saw, it could be as high as 500,000 IT jobs for mobile application developers over the next 5 years. Average salary. Now, it's kind of weird because, again, this is a really new role. These jobs, if you go and get the training, will give you the most earning right out the gate. So if you go, for example, to a dedicated program, which we'll talk about, or maybe you're already a developer and you get a couple different certifications or you get some good experience, you can really jump in and start making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year in your first 1 to 4 years of experience. And what's so funny is it's like 1 to 4 years experience, but this whole thing's only been around legitimately for like 6 years. So, it's all skewed. I've just been looking at the aggregate and, outside of this, and I think the average salary I'm seeing is definitely in like the 120, 130, 140, 150 range and more. I saw some mobile application developers, especially like in the Bay Area or New York, they're making like 180. So, again, good money, and you can tool up for this reasonably quickly. Definitely under a year and a half, you could be equipped to become a mobile application developer. So Can't recommend enough from the cash money side of the house. All right, so skills to become a mobile application developer. And it's kind of a broad spectrum because you really want someone who's developing mobile apps who can be a little more of a jack of all trades because they're so contained within there. So you need the analytical skills. And you must be able to recognize the needs of the customers and create new applications. Because here's a little trick that's taught, not really a little trait that's really not talked about a lot. A lot of mobile application devs work for small shops, or maybe they're independent players. So you kind of got to be a jack of all trades, and you got to know what clients want. The other factor is, in order to apply for a good mobile application job, they like to see a couple different apps that you've created already. Now, if you go to a formal program, you'll definitely create 5, 6, 7 apps. But you, as a mobile application developer, also want to be a little entrepreneurial and start looking around. And I bet you already are if you're thinking about this. And you're thinking, oh, that would be a great app, or that would be a great app. So you really want to be able to take a look at some data, look at some analysis, find out what customers want, and be able to create apps that would meet the needs of the market. Communication. Mobile application developers must be able to clearly communicate their ideas to other coders and their teammates. This isn't one of those gigs where you're just going to sit in a corner and code all day. You got to kind of be able to work with others, whether it be the creative folks or other developers or the business, and really be able to collaborate. So that's important. Creativity. And this is just my personal belief, but I think you've got to have a level of creativity to be a great mobile application dev, because there's all these amazing things, whether it be games like Angry Birds or different financial apps. You got to really be able to think outside the box and be creative in what you're building. It's just not, you're not building spreadsheets or, reports from a database. You're really building these things that are driving people's behavioral patterns. And you've got to think about things like usability and design and aesthetics. So creativity, I think, really plays a big part of being a skilled mobile application developer. Attention to detail. I put this in for every technical and development role. If you're in there and you're building code, you really should be able to pay attention to detail, because one wrong line of code and it all breaks. Problem solving. Again, for any developer, they've got to be strong problem solvers, because you get into that code and you've got, a couple 100,000 lines, and you got to go in there and fix it and problem solve it. You've got to be able to be analytical and pretty methodical in terms of how you solve those problems. Got to be a team player. Again, I guess you could do it all yourself, but the real magic happens as a mobile application developer when you're working on teams. And you really want to be able to work and collaborate with others when you're being a dev. And of course, you've got to be able to be good technically. You can't really jump in as a mobile application developer unless you have some proficiency with information technology, with development. All right, so there's not like a really hardcore degree when you're becoming a mobile application developer. It's not like you're graduating, with an accounting degree or a business degree. It's a lot more loose than that right now. And again, that's why getting in and learning how to develop apps early on, and so you can kind of demonstrate your wherewithal and skill, is really important. There are a couple of programs we'll talk about that are actually really well reviewed, but right now, in terms of a formalized education certification path, that's pretty weak. That's not out there as such. I think there'll probably be some private companies that say, hey, wait a minute, we have a certification program. But in terms of like industry standards, it doesn't really exist. So as you're looking at building your education, you definitely want to look at other sort of skill sets and experience to round out becoming a mobile application developer, such as user interface design. How are people going to use this? How big do the buttons need to be? How well spaced is this? What font size does it have to be? What color schemes work best on what devices? Super important. Again, you got to be familiar with a lot of the common programming language, such as Java, C++, HTML. There's a lot of ways to go at it. And also, you got to get familiar with Android and iOS development platforms. So it's not just one size fits all, like, okay, here's this tidy little package that you're going to have to code around. It may be that, if you're building a mobile solution, you're actually building a responsive web page because that, for whatever reason, is the right approach instead of building an actual application. So you have to know those other technologies and be familiar with them. And maybe you're not doing that work yourself, but you're working on a team. you got to be able to talk the same language and collaborate with your peers. Again, I put this in standard, having a strong general computing skills, including database and security. Knowing those fundamentals, really important. That may not be a huge part of what you're dealing with, but it also might be. Let's say you're working as a mobile application developer and you're building a finance app and you're pulling reports for salespeople, or you've got to tie into these different databases and you got to go through different security schemas to get access to that. It's good to have those foundational skills and be really well-rounded so that you can build a more comprehensive solution for the client. And then analytical skills, again, determining those user needs. We talked about that, but as you're building an app, you can't build it in a vacuum. You've got to be, okay, is the user going to like this? Is this going to meet their needs? How easy is it to use? You always have to be thinking about the end product when you're building a mobile app. Super important. All right. So what do you want to look for in the educational program? Okay, obviously you want to get good at Android and iOS. That kind of goes without saying, and they really are the predominant players right now. We talked a little bit about doing the responsive design in HTML5. That would be a huge help because maybe not everything is an app. You might need to go more of a responsive web page, but definitely Android and iOS. Some people just pick one flavor and go, I'm just strictly an iOS guy or I'm strictly an Android guy. It depends. Android can be a little easier because their app marketplace not nearly as picky as Apple's marketplace. So when you develop your apps for Apple, you got to go through all these hoops. You got to jump through and make sure there's no challenges. And people's apps get rejected from Apple all the time. Android, a little more tolerant. Right now, in terms of the marketplace, there's a lot of both out there, and there's a huge demand for both. At the same time, it's good to know both languages. So as a company, and they're developing an app, they're probably going to develop an app for both iOS and Android. I would say 99% of the time, so they can meet their clients' needs. So I know it's a lot of work, and these are definitely different sort of approaches to development, and you could just focus on one. However, as you grow your career, it's probably good to learn both Android and iOS. Mobile application marketing, sales, and deployment strategies. We talked about going through iTunes and what those challenges are. It's really great to figure out, how are my apps going to be distributed and disseminated across the marketplace? And understanding that is really going to empower you to build a better product, because you're going to kind of know what the limitations are. Like if you know that iTunes is super persnickety about the way the icon looks, in the App Store, you're going to take a little extra time to make sure that works really well. Or if there's a particular security model you need to follow. But again, it kind of goes back to the audience and what you're doing, but knowing those distribution channels, super important. Because what's really tough about apps is you can only buy them so many places. It is really kind of a closed marketplace. So Android, again, more open, but iTunes not so much. So you want to really get to know those ecosystems and know what the politics and the steps are to get your stuff accepted. Otherwise, you're going to put a lot of work into your apps and they're never going to see the light of day. We talked about graphic design, art direction. You really want to get your aesthetics down. Super important. Cross-platform game design training for web and mobile devices. So many of these apps that you're going to be doing are going to be games. And knowing game theory and knowing how that all plays together and what that experience is going to look like on a mobile device versus, say, a website, really important. So you're going to want to be able to compare those up together. User interface design we talked about. And then things like Java, Objective-C, PHP, MySQL, XHTML programming. Really want to have your core across that spectrum. You can't just be a one-trick pony here. To be as flexible and powerful as possible, you're going to want to have a handle on a lot of these different development languages so you can truly be effective. All right, so for my existing developer friends out there who are just looking for a way to jump in to become a mobile application developer, or perhaps they work for a company and they're trying to find ways to develop mobile applications, and you just don't really want to go back to school for a year and learn a bunch of new technologies, there are some great third-party products to take a look at. Now, if you're not a developer already and you're not really familiar with a lot of these technologies and you're starting from scratch, this is going to mean nothing to you. But if you are a developer and you're looking to get up to speed, especially if you work for a company who's trying to get into mobile application development, take a look at a product called AppCelerator Titanium. They've got a really sweet product, and especially if you're good at Java, you're able to code up products, and then they will basically create different versions for each operating system like iOS or Android. So just something to think about. It's a great kickstart. It's really, you could be the person that talks the company into, developing mobile apps and without having to take a year out to learn a bunch of new technologies. Just something to think about and putting that out there, if you're looking to jumpstart and you're already a developer. Okay, great. Programs. As I said, there's not a lot of formal programs out there. In fact, it's pretty loose right now. There are courses, like for example, if you go to Udemy, you'll see some courses. If you do Google, mobile application development bootcamp, you're going to find a bunch of things. I had a really hard time coming up with stuff that I would recommend for you because, again, this is pretty new and there's really just not a formal certification path for a mobile application developer right now. I know that, Apple has some certifications and there's some stuff through Android, but as a total package, like you are a mobile application development professional, it's pretty loose. There is a program at Full Sail. They're kind of a creative school out of Florida. They do a lot of filmmaking, graphic design type programs. They've come up with a mobile application design program, which is supposed to be really strong, and it does teach a lot of those fundamentals, such as user interface design, aesthetics, etc. So it's worth taking a look at. That being said, crazy expensive. So, it's like going back to grad school expensive. Just something to think about, but it is a viable option if you're not opposed to a little student loan debt. University of Phoenix, another option. Also, they have schools in most major cities. I've heard fairly good things about their mobile application program. I would check it out. It's definitely worth doing some investigation into. If you just want to get into it, you want to get your feet wet, get dirty, check out Pluralsight. Pluralsight is a online learning program really designed for devs and technologists, and it's got some great training. I love that site, and they've got some really good mobile application development courses, iOS, Android, etc., and it's $30 a month. So you can get your feet wet, you can start seeing, okay, is this really for me? Are these technologies I could feel comfortable with without having to drop a grip on tuition like you would at someplace like Full Sail, or even University of Phoenix for that matter. If you can talk your company into the AppCelerator product, they've also got a great certification program that's worth exploring as well. All right, so takeaways. Again, mobile application development, great career choice. Even if you're already a developer and you're trying to decide what to do next, I would really look at trying to jumpstart your career as a mobile application developer. If you're starting, maybe you just come out of college and you're trying to figure out what to do next, and you don't mind doing the heavy lifting now, this is a great course. It's not as easy as some careers to get into, but definitely once you get that heavy lifting done and you get those skills, there is so much money to be made and there's so much stability and future for mobile application developers out there. All right, stay with us. We got another great six-figure career path coming your way. Thanks so much.